Welcome back to another episode of Connie Celica, my 1977 Toyota Celica. Last episode you saw me filling cracks, and this episode I'm going to be scrubbing things. That's right everyone, it's time to give Beamsy here a bath because Connie's going to get painted very soon. I'm hoping to make a run across the border to take her to the Street Banditos for paint, and I want the engine and transmission to look as good as she does when everything gets put back together. So I'm not going to go crazy on it, but I am going to give it a really thorough cleaning, degreasing, a scrubbing, and then I'm going to paint some of the rustier or more corroded looking bits and pieces. Speaking of which, the subframe which I had powder coated has developed some rust in some nooks and crannies where I don't think the powder got into very well. So I'm going to hit that with some POR15, which I did do on these front tension rod brackets, and you can see they look brand new. So they worked, that coating worked extremely well. And strangely enough, when I posted on social media about our recent use of POR15, I think on the Evo or maybe on the M3, they reached out on Instagram and said, hey, can we send you guys some stuff? And sure enough, this showed up in our mailbox. This is their Stop Rust Kit, which I think is actually a really clever way to package this stuff, because to apply their hard coating, you need to degrease it and prep the metal first. So this has all of that in it. It's got the degreaser, the metal prep, and the coating, and they also supply some brushes and some rubber gloves. And you do want to wear the rubber gloves, everyone, because from experience, if you get it on your skin, it ain't coming off for quite some time. And don't get it on your expensive jeans either, because that's not coming off either. Which just goes to show you what a good bond it makes. It really does adhere incredibly well to whatever you apply it to. So be careful what you do apply it to. As a matter of fact, I went ahead and I went down the road and bought some of their engine enamel as well, because I like the idea of brushing it onto this iron block rather than spraying it on, because I'm not going to fully disassemble the engine like we did with the Evo, where we just had the short block and it was very easy to paint with an aerosol. I'm going to leave the head on it, obviously, and I think it'll just be easier to brush it on than to spray it on under those circumstances. So first thing I'm going to do is blow all this up. So I'm going to take the long block off the subframe, disassemble everything so that I can give it a good scrubbing. That was too much work. I'd forgotten how much labor is involved in working on cars, and man, this flywheel, which is the original dual mass flywheel, when I popped that off the engine, it weighed so much it caught me off guard, and I wanted to weigh it because I actually have a Toyota flywheel coming from our friends at Battle Garage. Just throwing this on a little hand scale here, and we are seeing 27.8 pounds, which, wow, that is a heavy flywheel. This is of course a dual mass flywheel, which they use to dampen vibration, like driveline vibration. There's literally two parts of it, and there's a rubber damper in between them, and that's great for making the car's, driveline vibrations isolated from the driver. But in a car like this, I don't care about that. And obviously a light and flywheel will really liven the engine up a lot. As a matter of fact, I was chatting with Matt Panic, my Beams Celica guru. And he was saying that the single best mod that he ever did to his beams was a lightweight flywheel. So he says it just makes a huge difference in how snappy the throttle response is. It just makes the whole engine feel a lot livelier. So I figured, why not? So I reached out to Battle Garage, and they sell the Toyota flywheels at a price that's unbeatable. You can't find a better price than they have it for. That's why I decided to pull the transmission off. Plus it'll make it easier just to scrub the transmission separately from the engine, and I can mount the engine on the stand like I have, which is going to make it easier to detail it properly. And plus it gives us an opportunity to take a closer look at the ITBs and how we did this vacuum distribution setup. I get a lot of questions about that setup, so you can get a good look at it there. You can see some other goodies on here, like we have this SQ Engineering throttle linkage, which allows us to come up from the bottom with this bracket. We've got their slimline alternator bracket, and we've got their slimline water housing on the back of the motor here. We've got our Cusco engine mounts, and of course our Excessive Engineering engine mount brackets. So that is our basic beam setup. I think it's time now to like strip the harness off, strip a few other things off, and I can really get down to cleaning it. Now that we've got Beamsy stripped down here, it is time to crack open our POR15 kit and give it a cleaning. So we're going to start with the Cleaner Degreaser, which they recommend mixing at least to a 1-to-1 ratio, if not weaker. So like they say 5-to-1 or even 10-to-1 is good enough for most cases, but you can mix it as strong as 1-to-1. And this is pretty dirty, so I'll probably mix it pretty close to 1-to-1. I have a big container of this from our previous POR15 adventures, so I don't need to conserve this too much. Went for a 4-to-1 solution. When I read the fine print on the small bottle, it actually recommends 4-to-1. On the big bottle, it said 1-to-1 to 10-to-1. Anyway, I went 4-to-1 on this, and I am just gonna spray it on here, nice and heavy. And once I've let it sort of do its work, I'm going to come in afterwards and like agitate it with a brush and everything. And after I've done that, I'm going to rinse it off with clean water as they recommend, and then on to the metal prep stage. You can see the block's actually in pretty good shape. Like there's not a lot of rust showing through. It's kind of rusty down in this area here, but overall it's actually in really good shape, which I guess is to be expected with a JDM engine. But I know how old this engine is actually, because if you look on the front cover here, there's a G1 sticker, and that G1 sticker tells me that this is the earliest of these Beams Blacktop engines. G1 is like 98, 99, and then there's a G2 automatic from that era. There's a G3, which is newer, a G4 automatic, and then a G5. So if you're looking for one of these for your own project and you're going to use a manual gearbox, make sure you get a G1, a G3, or a G5. G5 being the newest and theoretically the freshest, so try to find a G5 if you can. I didn't know that when I bought this motor. I might have looked a little harder at how they were labeled at that JDM shop we went to, but lesson learned, there's actually a way to identify how old your motor is. So I know this thing is like 20, 21 years old, and for that old, it's looking pretty good. And by the way, this stiff bristle brush that Pete has for our parts cleaner over there, perfect for giving her a scrub. All right, moved on to the metal prep here. It doesn't say the surface has to be dry. We've already rinsed it with clean water, so I think we're okay to put it on wet. And it does say on like really rusty surfaces to keep it damp on here for up to 30 minutes. But we have so little rust on here, it does say you can use it, on here for as little as 10 minutes. So I think we're just gonna go the 10-minute route. We'll keep it nice and wet just by coming around, again and again and giving it a spritz. And after 10 minutes, we're gonna wash it, let it completely dry, and then it's onto the paint stage. Engine enamel time, everybody, and in case you're wondering why I'm all ventilated up here, that's because this stuff has a pretty serious warning on it that you don't want to breathe in the vapors or the fumes from it, because it's not good for your health. So taking some precautions, plus Peter is standing closer than 6 feet, so we're also being
we have our masks on
here. So as you can see, we've tilted the motor on its side here so that it won't run down onto the aluminum oil pan area. And I've never used this enamel before, so I'm not sure how thin or thick to put it on, so I'm just gonna get a feel for it as I go here. Well, first coat done on this side of the motor, and it actually goes on quite a bit different than the regular POR15 stuff does. I think it's a little bit thicker and similar to the other POR15. As it starts to dry, it seems to like fill in better. It like fills in all the little spots, kind of evens out, it flows quite nicely. So I think it's going to work really well. Initially when I put it on this little, I think a stainless housing, which I really didn't prep much, we didn't sand it or anything, it didn't seem like it was going to stick to it, but then once it started to dry, it started to thicken up and spread, and it's looking quite good now. So we might not even need a second coat on that
rest of the block looks great, so I'm just going to let this tack up a little bit. We don't want it to run down onto the aluminum because the judges at the Quail show would object to seeing any drips down here. So we'll let it tack up, we'll flip it over, do the other side, and then I think it's time to move on to subframes and transmissions.
It's time, everybody. It's time to find out if Turbo Tom is in the pocket of big bubbles or if this stuff actually will clean this greasy old transmission. So it's actually not that bad, is it? It's sort of a bit greasy in this area, and you know, there's just general dirt up here, but it's not bad. So let's see what the bubbles do. According to the instructions, you just kind of like spray it on there, get that foaming action going. This is a bathroom cleaner, but I don't know, Turbo Tom likes to clean things, and he swears by this stuff. So all I can say is if it doesn't work, I'm going on social media, I'm calling him out, but I'm hoping I don't have to do that because this stuff works as well as he says it does. It's going to save us some time and effort. Well, it looks like Turbo Tom may be onto something here, because this area here where I've scrubbed it with this scrub brush really is a lot cleaner than the rest of it. So we let it soak for a couple of minutes, and just coming in here with this brush and really giving a good hard scrub and then rinsing it off with some soapy water here, or really just clean water, you can see this area is looking really much better than the rest of it. So I think Turbo Tom was not lying to us. He's not in the pockets of big bubble, everybody. I think I'm just gonna continue on. I'm probably gonna give it some more scrubbing bubbles and just keep scrubbing this thing until it looks, well, not new, but it's gonna look a whole lot better than it did. Look at that, everyone. It is looking a whole lot better. It's still got some of that, I don't know if it's oxidization or it's something happening in the surface of the aluminum that you can't remove with a household cleaner or even a more aggressive wheel cleaner, which I did try. It has some like ammonia, maybe some acid in it. And lots of scrubbing. So I mean, the thing is clean enough to eat off right now, but it doesn't have like that showroom new look. But I'm really happy with how much better it does look. And if I wanted to make it look perfect, we'd have to go to the wire wheel or maybe paint it. But that's just way too much work. This transmission's under the tunnel. You're never gonna see it when you open up the hood. So there's really no point to make this thing look perfect for a driver like this car is meant to be. This is not a show car. It's time to throw some POR15 on the subframe, and for that I'm just using their standard rust preventative coating. This is stuff you've seen us use a million times before on subframes and suspension arms and really anything you want to make look good again and put a very protective coating on it. I often compare it to like a brush-on type of powder coat. It's not the same process obviously, but it gives you that kind of like very durable coating, and it's proven to last a long time, and it really does like seal the metal underneath extremely well so that you're not going to get any more rust forming. And as you can see on our subframe, we do have some rust coming through where the powder coat went on too thin. So I'm just going to go over the whole top side of it and then touch up the underside sort of on the inside here where it's a little rusty. And at that point, I think we're going to call it good. All right, put a coat on both the subframe and these two engine mount brackets, and I gave these a scrub with some Scotch-Brite pads and then wiped it down with acetone. But you can see that the POR is kind of like struggling a bit to adhere to it. I probably needed to use like a rougher grit, maybe even sandpaper on it to really give it something to adhere to, but as it dries, it does seem to kind of fill in. So I'm just gonna let this coat dry, and then if it needs a bit of a touch-up, I'll come in and throw a second coat on it. This looks like it's gonna dry perfectly though, so I'm not too worried about the subframe. In the meantime, I think we're gonna move on and paint the other side of the block, and then I think maybe it's time to get out of here because the fumes are getting serious. And there you have the other side of the engine done in an enamel, and it's still very wet, and I should be wearing a mask right now, but I'm taking it off so you can hear me. I'm willing to risk my health for you guys. So Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this quick little episode on giving Beamsy a bath, making him look new again, or at least newer again. Really, I wanted to just seal up any kind of rust. I wasn't trying to make it look perfect, as I think is a continuing theme in this minor restoration that I've been doing while we wait to take the car to paint. Which, speaking of, I think the next thing you're gonna see on Connie is just me loading it in the trailer and taking it down to Baltimore to the Street Bandito guys and having them paint the car, because I think I'm out of things to do here. I really don't have much left to try to make work from. So, and we're starting to open up here. We're in like stage 1 here in Ontario. I think in the States they're starting to open up more and more depending on the state you're in. So I'm optimistic that in the next few weeks I'll be able to take Connie down there. So hopefully it's not too long a wait before you see her getting painted in a color that I still haven't picked. As a matter of fact, let's use a poll at the very end of this episode, everyone. Here are 4 colors that I'm thinking about, including Hakone green, that green that they offered the new Toyota 86 in, the tangerine scream off the Ford Focus ST, which I think is a pretty cool color, as well as like the classic Celica orange and that Orion turquoise metallic color. So I'll throw a poll up here. You guys let me know what color you think I should do it in. And then when I'm down with the Street Banditos, we're gonna have a bunch of samples. We'll play around with it and we'll pick a color. Oh, and if you're wondering who put the powder coat on too thin on that subframe, that'd be me. That's right, our buddy JP made the mistake of letting me do my own powder coating, and now I'm fixing my own problems. Same old, same old.